The second step is to make sure that we use something or that we develop something that is acceptable to a patient. And one thing that is not acceptable to a patient is a very lengthy questionnaire where 200 items needs to be filled out. We currently can measure physical activity levels, and there are several activity monitors, not all are valid. So in the second step, we will try to integrate this dimension of how much somebody is doing, and these are just two examples of activity monitors. It doesn't say that we are taking these into the proactive tool. And this will give us one dimension, how much can I do? And we will integrate this in a user-friendly, patient-friendly way with your more classical electronic patient-reported outcome tools, which has items for the other dimensions. And so this we will try hence to avoid to have too many items in the questionnaire. We'll try to capture it directly from the patient by measuring physical activity levels and blend this in with symptoms. I'll give you an example in just a minute. And then the third step, which is actually the last 3 years of the proactive project, in this third step we will validate these new patient-reported outcome tools in the European population. And here is really why this collaboration with FPA members is of crucial importance, because it gives us access to populations of patients in their clinical trials that otherwise we would not have had access to. We will now be able to validate this tool in Estonia, in Slovakia, in France, in Germany, countries that are not exactly in our academic consortium, but through the clinical trials that are established by the FPA members, we can now integrate this tool and see how it is responsive to the therapies that are offered currently with our drugs. And so to give you a little bit of an example of how we will blend this information from an activity monitor and symptoms into one outcome tool, one new outcome tool, this cartoon sort of depicts it. You can have the physical activity level of a patient measured, and that's here depicted in red, and then the symptoms, which are given here in blue. And typically, we either used one. For instance, in our research on pulmonary rehabilitation, we've used activity monitoring as just the only dimension to capture physical activity. Or, what companies have done so far, you can use symptom tools. And what you can see is that a symptom, imagine that you have an acute exacerbation over here, a flare-up of the disease, then symptoms go up, and then they wear off and they get normal again a couple of days or weeks after the acute exacerbation. What you see happening at the same time is that the amount of physical activity drops, and then it stays low for quite some time before we get back to our baseline levels. And this may take a much longer time. So a patient who actually here has almost no symptoms anymore may have no symptoms, not because his disease is better, but because he's not doing anything. If you're sitting in a chair and I ask you, are you dyspneic, then you'll probably say no. It's only if you start doing things that you start getting dyspneic. And so this new tool will probably be more sensitive to pick up changes with interventions or recovery after acute exacerbation. What is the expected outcome? Well, the expected outcome of proactive in 5 years from now is that we have a validated new patient-reported outcome tool or tools. We will actually develop several of these tools, integrating both monitors and questionnaires for daily use in our patients and on routine clinical visits, both to a clinical doctor or in the context of a clinical trial. And what I think is unique to this tool is this integrated approach of measuring something immediately on the patient and then having some symptom questionnaire next to it and other dimensions next to it, which actually may be a blueprint for other chronic diseases where physical activity is of crucial importance. And I believe that this is also a reason why the FPA members may be interested in it, because they can use the concept and with minor modifications perhaps applied to new diseases that they are interested in, but perhaps the academic consortium is less interested in. What are the expected benefits to patients? Well, I think that the benefit is that we will have tools available, new tools available, that are capable of monitoring the progression and the improvement of their disease in a domain that is extremely relevant. What you can or cannot do on a normal day is really extremely important to patients, and they will be probably more compliant with therapies that change something that matter in their life, like their physical activity levels. We'll have a new and integrated outcome that may open a window of opportunities for the acceptance of new therapies, and will focus at developing a tool that will allow the FPA members to go for labeling claims and say, well, look, our product does improve not only lung function, but also physical activity in daily life. And that's for us also of crucial importance. And then these combinations of the amount of activity and symptom will probably be interesting to also look at non-pharmacological interventions, which is of course important in the management of patients with COPD at large. Who are we? Well, we are a consortium of a number of FPA members led by Chiesi Farmaceutici and other members, and we really are keen to have them on board because they have expertise within their companies on how to develop PROs and particularly how to bring these patient-reported outcome tools to regulatory authorities, and they really know all the steps that as academics we care less about, but we are now sure that every step we take will be a step that is really useful in getting this tool accepted by regulatory authorities. Obviously, they have expertise in integrating technology like activity monitors in monitoring tools. They have multi-center studies in place that we can use to validate our tools, and they have powerful project management. Networks of clinical experts that are engaged in their clinical trials and elsewhere, and they, of course, are our primary contact point to get in touch with regulatory authorities, which they do on a regular basis. As academics, we're less frequently in touch with regulatory authorities. We have some academic partners, and you see them listed here, but importantly, we also have some patient organizations. Of course, if you're developing a patient-reported outcome, it's crucial to have patient organizations on board in such a consortium. And we have the Asthma Foundation, which is actually a foundation in Holland dealing with patients with respiratory diseases, and the British Lung Foundation. As a scientific organization, we have the European Respiratory Society on board. And our small-medium enterprise is a bit particular in that it's not a biotech company, but it's a company that is specifically specialized in translating culturally sensitive translations. And of course, if you have a questionnaire for Flanders or for Belgium, well, for Flanders because it's going to be in Flemish, I have to be careful with what I say on Flanders and Belgium these days, but if you have a questionnaire for the Flemish language that is now needed to be translated to the Estonian language, there are some culturally sensitive aspects, and you need really experts, and these guys are experts in doing these culturally sensitive translations of instruments to make them also acceptable for the use in multi-center, multinational clinical trials. What have we done so far? Well, so far we've done 5 systematic literature reviews on this topic. I'll not go into too much detail. From this, 6 abstracts were submitted to the European Respiratory Society Congress, and they will be presented in the September Congress we have in Barcelona. Main topics were what are currently available questionnaires, how does physical activity fit into a larger endpoint model in these patients, and which activity monitors are known to be valid in patients with chronic diseases, so that we can go from 200 potential activity monitors to 7 that we're now taking forward in a formal validation study in another work package. In 3 centers, individual patient interviews have been conducted so far, and focus groups are being completed to get the information from the patient on what they find is crucial when we discuss physical activity, so that we develop something that is actually of absolute relevance to the patient population. And in 4 centers, 7 activity monitors are currently being validated. We started recruitment of patients at the beginning of July. The financing is divided again into IMI funding and FPA funding. In total, the project cost will be about 16 million euros, and we started in September 2009 for a period of 5 years, which is so far being a very successful first 9 months. If you want more information on the project, or if you're interested in submitting your own project and you want some background on how to do that and what are the things that may be important, feel free to contact me. This is my email address, Thierry Troosters at met.leuven.be, or you can contact Caterina Brindisi, who is the coordinator and sits in the Chiesi Farmaceutici group, or you can consult our website. It's proactivecopd.com. Thank you very much.